Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, we are now in the midst of a blizzard, a massive nor'easter. Anyway, so it's affecting much of the Northeast, much of New England. The governor has now declared a state of emergency for pretty much all of Massachusetts. It is going to continue to snow and snow and snow, allegedly. That's what they're saying, at least the meteorologists, the weather reports, all day. So please stay inside, stay off the roads. The driving conditions are absolutely atrocious out there. So please stay safe. If you can avoid it, stay home. Now, with all of this taking place across the Northeast and New England, on Friday, the Supreme Court delivered one of its most historic rulings. Certainly one of the most historic rulings, not just in this term, but of any of the two terms that Trump has been president. They voted in 6-3, 3 liberals, 3 conservatives, to strike down, to overturn Trump's tariffs, which in many ways is the economic cornerstone of his economic agenda. Make no mistake about it. I know there's some talking heads on Fox who are poo-pooing this, saying it's much ado about nothing, claiming that, this is all a big nothing burger. They're lying. They're lying because they want to pretend that this is not a defeat for Trump, when it clearly is a massive defeat for Trump. What the Supreme Court did, in a nutshell, is that now they are preventing our country from stopping other nations from ripping us off and imposing unfair trade practices. That's what they effectively did. They have attempted now to unilaterally disarm the United States and to put us in a straitjacket, and to now essentially allow other countries, whether it's China, whether it's Canada, whether it's Mexico, whether it's the Europeans, whether it's Japan, South Korea, Brazil, or I don't care, take your pick, to come in and dump their products. And that's what they do, to dump their products, take advantage of the United States, and come in and sell their goods that are destroying American businesses, American manufacturers, and that have cost us millions and millions of good-paying working-class jobs. They want the deindustrialization of America to continue. And if you remember during the election campaign, and I can tell you firsthand, okay, firsthand, because the convention was in Wisconsin. And so when I was there, I drove around, I talked to people. One of the biggest reasons why people in Wisconsin and in Pennsylvania and in Michigan and in Ohio, the so-called Rust Belt, the reason why they voted for Trump was because he promised to impose tariffs, economic patriotism, and end the offshoring of our jobs, of our factories, and the outsourcing of our manufacturing, which has devastated much of the country, especially the Midwest. And now, even though he won, and he won with a decisive mandate in a decisive landslide, the Supreme Court is overturning or attempting to overturn the Democratic mandate that President Trump had to impose these tariffs. And so now the globalists are popping champagne corks. This is a big victory for the globalists and a massive defeat for America first, for patriots, but above all, for the American people and the American worker. Listen now to President Trump. He at a press conference hours after the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs, and here is what President Trump said. Roll cut to Mike.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country, which is right now very proud of those justices. When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. That I can assure you.
Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit later in the show. There is a plan B. Trump has a plan B. They were expecting something like this, or at least preparing for something like this. And so there are other tools in the trade toolbox that Trump can use to try to minimize and soften the blow of the Supreme Court. So, and he's going to be using it. In fact, he's already started using it very aggressively. But I want to be very clear, okay, because this to me needs to be said. And very few people are saying it. Trump was not 100. He was 1,000% correct in invoking what's called the IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, in order to impose tariffs on countries that claim to be our friends, but have been ripping us off, taking advantage of us. You want to know the truth? Screwing us economically, whether it's Canada, whether it's Mexico, whether it's the Germans, whether it's the French, whether it's the Japanese, whether it's the South Koreans, and especially our mortal adversaries, China being number one. And over the last 30 years, I want you to just step back objectively, okay, just objectively. We have lost as a nation because of these disastrous, quote-unquote, free trade policies, which, by the way, aren't even free trade, because Canada has tariffs on our goods. Mexico has tariffs on our goods. China has massive tariffs on our goods. Japan, South Korea, the Europeans have massive tariffs on our goods. We're the only idiots that keep our tariffs either low or none at all, while they keep theirs high. So it's not really free trade. It's unfair trade. It's free for them. It's not free for us. We have lost trillions of dollars in wealth. Trillions. And in particular, to China, we have shifted our economic power, trillions in wealth, to essentially build up China's economy, build up their manufacturing, build up their military on our dime, at the cost of our jobs. 50 to 60,000 factories gone. 7 million manufacturing jobs gone. Our industrial manufacturing base has been hollowed out and destroyed. Okay, and I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg. We have been running trade deficit after trade deficit after trade deficit. It was the ultimate betrayal of the American people and the American worker. Well, now the Supreme Court has betrayed not just Trump. They have betrayed the Constitution, they have betrayed the American people, and they have betrayed the American worker. The three Democrats on the High Court, Elena Kagan, the wise Latina, Sonia Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who doesn't know what a woman is. That I expected. Chief Justice Roberts, another Judas, him who wrote the decision, by the way, the majority decision, that I also expected. But Amy Coney Barrett? Neil Gorsuch? who's normally extremely good and very sound, no wonder Trump feels personally betrayed. He put those two on the Supreme Court. And as he said, this for him personally was one of the most important cases, because now this ruling ties his hands to use tariffs as a way to advance America's economic and national security. They have now delivered a blow to Trump. And make no mistake about it, this was deliberate. Okay, the Supreme Court delivers a stinging repudiation of Trump's tariffs. They essentially rule that they are illegal. And there's no question this is a body blow to Trump's economic agenda. Tariffs were a centerpiece of his attempt to make America great again, to reshore jobs, manufacturing, industry, to have products be made here at home instead of us constantly outsourcing to other countries around the world. Listen now to President Trump saying these justices that voted against him, and in particular, he's really furious at Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, and Neil Gorsuch. For him, this wasn't just a betrayal of the United States, a betrayal of the American worker. This was a personal betrayal to him. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty. It's one thing you can do with some of our people.
Now, and that's the point. He's saying, look, they don't care what's good for the country. Tariffs are really, literally rebuilding the United States as we speak. Okay? As we speak. Trillions and trillions of dollars in investment are now pouring in. This is going to put it in jeopardy. Plants, factories are being built as we speak, putting it in jeopardy. Deals now have to be renegotiated. So these trade deals that took a year to put together are now in jeopardy. And of course, what are we going to do with the tariff revenue? Are they going to have to give back hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to all these companies that paid tariffs when they were importing these goods into the United States? So are we going to have to start giving a refund to all of these companies? It's going to be a mess. Who gets a refund? Who doesn't get a refund? Who gets a check? Who doesn't get a check? And let me say the quiet part out loud. I am now becoming convinced that the Supreme Court deliberately is seeking to sabotage Trump. And Trump even hinted at this, and I'm going to get to this, when he said they're under the undue influence of foreign powers. The economy now is starting to hit hyperdrive. Everything now is turning our way. Economic growth is soaring. Inflation is coming down. The housing market is bouncing back. Manufacturing now is exploding. Right across the board, you can feel it. The wind is now at the economy's back. It's starting to finally get turbocharged. The tariffs were it took a while, but they were finally put in place. All the pieces were put in place. The one exception was the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, but he's on his way out in a couple of months. So everything now, the path was clear for an economic boom heading into the midterms. And what did the Supreme Court do? Bang, they wrecked it. It was a deliberate attempt to wreck not just the tariffs, but the Trump economy. This, to me, was an absolute betrayal of the highest order. And listen now to Trump. saying, say what you want about Kagan or Ketanji Brown Jackson or Sotomayor. Yes, they vote against America and what's good for America, but they always toe the line. They're loyal to the Democrats to the end. Our side, not so much. Roll cut to B, Mike.
Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before far too often with certain members of this court, and it's happened so often with this court. What a shame. Having to do with voting in particular, when in fact they're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything at all to do with it. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution.
He's talking particularly about Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, and now Gorsuch. So he's basically saying, you can always count on rhinos to stab you in the back and to frankly stab the Constitution in the back. That's how they roll. Now, the good news is that there are, as I said, there's a plan B. And Trump is already activating parts of plan B. And so what he has now done, under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act, I don't want to get too much into the policy weeds, but there's Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act. There's also Section 232 and Section 332. So there are different elements of different laws that Trump now can invoke trade authority in order to keep many of his tariffs that were up before, to keep them up at least for another 6 months. So he does have time, breathing room, to maybe cut a deal with Congress, maybe renegotiate, maybe find something that at the legal level, at the statutory level, can, he can have it more durable and more bulletproof from any court challenges. And so what he did is he first imposed a 10% global tariff. That means a 10% tariff on every country, every good coming in. Okay, the Supreme Court now delivers a huge blow to Trump, claiming his tariffs are illegal. Trump has now responded. He has attacked the Supreme Court, saying they are they're under undue foreign influence, that they should be ashamed of themselves, in particular the three conservatives who sided with the three liberals, Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, and Neil Gorsuch. Let me play one more cut, then I want to go to the phone lines. Here is Trump at the press conference on Friday saying, you want to know the truth? I think some members of the Supreme Court were swayed by foreign powers and foreign movement and foreign interests, and that they were afraid of the militant left. I think, frankly, I think he's targeting both Chief Justice Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett with that shot. He doesn't mention any names, but I think he's saying Amy Coney Barrett is afraid, and Chief Justice Roberts, well, we know who he hangs around with. So he pals around with a lot of very powerful globalists who are foreigners and who do not have America's best interests at heart. Roll cut to C, Mike.
It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think. It's a small movement. I won by millions of votes. We won in a landslide. With all the cheating that went on, there was a lot of it, but we still won in a landslide. Too big to rig. But these people are obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. They're very loud. And I think certain justices are afraid of that. They don't want to do the right thing. They're afraid of it.
So let me ask you, by the way, he's right. I know he's taken a lot of heat for it. He's being crucified. The media has been relentlessly blasting him and excoriating him. I mean, just torching him ever since Friday for saying that. He is 1,000% correct. So I want to ask you double barrel question and open up the phone lines 617-266-6868 on this Blizzard Monday. Number one, what do you make of the Supreme Court's 6-3 ruling declaring Trump's tariffs illegal? Agree, disagree? And number two, did Trump cross the line by personally attacking the Supreme Court, saying that they should be ashamed of themselves and that they're under the sway of foreign interests and foreign powers? Did Trump go too far, or do you think he was just telling it as it is? 617-266-6868. Debbie in Milton, you're going to kick us off, Debbie. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Yeah, hi, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Debbie.
You know what? Amy was selected by Trump, and she's been nothing but a disappointment. And as far as the other two conservative judges, same thing. I don't think they have the American interest in their vision. And I also believe that Trump was correct. He can be a little harsh, but he says it like it is. And we're in a troubled nation, and around us we have Mexico cartels, this, that, and the other thing. And he's not going to be able to do it on his own. We do need help. And the fact is, I mean, I don't agree with all of Trump's policies, but most of them I do. So he's got his hands full, because it's going to take another, a year or two to rectify these tariffs. Seriously.
That's the point, Debbie. You see, that they're sabotaging Trump. You nailed it. He's come out with temporary measures. Look, if later in the show, I'll lay it all out. He's got a 15% global tariff. He's going to invoke different sections of different laws. What was remarkable about the dissent, Debbie, okay, not the majority opinion written by Roberts, but the three conservative justices, Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and Samuel Alito. It was written by Kavanaugh with input from both men, the other two men, Thomas and Alito. It's an incredible decision, an incredible dissent. Number one, it really destroys the majority opinion. When you read it, you're like, this is an invincible argument. They take every argument made by Roberts and they just destroy it. But then the other thing that's remarkable is that they lay out a roadmap, a blueprint. And I mean a detailed blueprint. It's almost funny, honestly. I mean, if it wasn't so sad, it'd be funny. But it's almost funny. It's like, well, you see, but then if you want to keep the tariffs, literally, this is Kavanaugh saying there's the 1974 Trade Act and there's Section 122. So that will give you authority to implement most of your tariffs. Then you've got Section 232 on national security grounds. Then you've got Section 332, which can help you with these categories. So they're basically saying, look, you can use this, and then you can use that, and then you can use that, and that will keep most of your tariffs together for a while. The only problem is they're temporary. Trump can only invoke them for 150 days. Okay, basically, 5 months. Then he's either going to have to renew, or he's going to have to go to Congress and make a deal. So this is why Trump is so angry. He's like, I got to go back to the drawing board now? I got to go back to the drawing board? Now, okay, it's going to alleviate the damage from soften the blow from the Supreme Court. But think about it from Trump's point of view, Debbie. He just spent a year, he and his trade team, negotiating deal after deal after deal, from India to China to Canada, well, not Canada, but to Mexico, to the European Union, to China, to South Korea, to Japan. And now with one ruling, they destroy or try to destroy everything this guy has done in the last year. And now, just when all the pieces are in place, everything, it's ready to go. The tariff regime was implemented, And now we're starting to see the investment pouring in, the jobs, the factories, the manufacturing being built or offshore, coming back again, being reshored. And now you take a sledgehammer? That's why Trump was so upset. And honestly, I don't blame him. Final word to you.
And usually I don't, I take half the side, but this time I took full his side. And there have been other presidents that have imposed tariffs throughout the years, but for some reason we have a shadow government, and it's not going to make a lot of people happy, trust me. I believe there's probably, and I hate to say this, it's going to be a civil war against the government at some point.
Well, they keep setting us back. I mean, I'm sorry to put it so crudely, but they keep screwing us. Economic treason at the High Court. The Supreme Court rules 6-3, striking down Trump's tariffs. Trump now says they should be ashamed of themselves. He says they are under the influence of foreign interests and foreign powers. He said personally, no other case betrayed him more than this case because they tried to take a wrecking ball to his economic agenda and all the tariffs that he has now enacted to make America great again. My question to you, what do you make of the Supreme Court's ruling? And did Trump cross the line when he personally attacked justices on the court, essentially saying they're traitors? Didn't quite use that word, obviously, but saying that they should be ashamed, that they're a disgrace, and that they that they clearly, he says, are working for foreign interests and foreign countries. Agree, disagree? Dave in Lynn. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Dave?
Jeff, I'm outside playing in the snow, working, driving on the highway.
Are you really driving on the roads?
Yes, sir, Jeff.
Oh, well, how are the roads right now, Dave?
Oh, Jeff, everybody just doesn't know how to drive, and let me see. I've been down Revere Beach. It was a disaster area down there. And I'm on my way up to Saugus, up on Route 1. Can't see nothing once the wind starts to blow. So, yeah, we got some whiteout conditions, but it's all doodling day's work, Jeff.
Yeah, just be careful, Dave. Please be careful. Drive. If I know you probably have to. It's your job. But please go slow and be very careful, Dave. God forbid, I don't want anything to happen to you. But so basically, weather conditions are bad. Driving conditions are bad. There are whiteouts in some areas. So please, if you can avoid it, stay home. Dave, what do you make of the ruling? What do you make of Trump's reaction to the ruling?
I think he has every right to feel the way he does. So, Jeff, if he can't get that back on the tariffs and all that, that means everything we're going to have to buy is going to be coming from outside. Why should we have to keep buying stuff from outside when we can do it from the inside out? It just don't make any sense. And yeah, he assigned these people to the system, but it's like they didn't have the cojones to back him up. And it's like he's doing it all the time, trying to help us out. And every time he's trying to help us out, Jeff, we're being screwed because the so-called judicial system doesn't like anything that he's doing, Jeff. It's not right. And we're the ones paying for it.
Well, Dave, I think you put your finger right on it, really. You've got these left-wing judges. I'm not talking the Supreme Court right now. I'm talking about, these left-wing judges blocking Trump on deportations, blocking Trump on sending in ICE, deporting illegal aliens. So they're blocking him on that front. Now you have the Supreme Court, who are under tremendous pressure from the Democratic Party, from the media, and from rhino Republicans. They knew if they could knock out the IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. That's what Trump was invoking, that act to impose these tariffs. if they could knock off Trump's tariffs, then they could cripple his economic agenda. And you're right. Look, why do we have to keep buying goods made in other countries? How come we can't buy American? How come we can't make stuff here that other countries make? This only in the end makes us poorer. Yeah, in the short run, you're getting cheaper stuff. But in the long run, you don't have a job. You don't have plants. You don't have factories. You don't have industry. You don't have a manufacturing base. The middle working class for the last 30 years has been hollowed out. And here, look, Trump mentioned it. I'm going to play the cut later. Look, I've been to Europe many, many times. I know good friends of mine who've been to South Korea. They've been to Japan. They've been to Singapore. These are very wealthy countries. Now, let me tell you what you notice. I don't care. When I've been to Austria, I notice this. When I've been to France, I notice this. When I've been to Britain, I notice this. When I've been to Germany, I've noticed this. Everybody notices this. You go anywhere in Europe, you see BMWs, you see Mercedes, you see Audis, you see Renaults. But you know what you don't see on the road? You don't see one Ford, one GM car. You don't see a single American car or pickup. It's the same thing when you go to Japan. They go, you drive on the highways, it's full of cars. I can't see one American car. Or South Korea, I can't see one car. But you come to the United States, and I'll tell you what I see. Toyotas, Hyundais, Volkswagens, BMWs, Mercedes. In other words, I see German cars, I see European cars, I see Japanese cars, I see Korean, Hyundai, a lot of Hyundais. I see a Korean, but there's no Y, it's Hyundai. Okay, Mike is telling me I'm mispronouncing it. It's Hyundai, not Hyundai. Okay, so Hyundai, the Y is silent. You see a lot of Korean cars. My point is, so how come they're able to flood our market? Which, by the way, that boosts not only their sales, factories, jobs, manufacturing in their countries. So our market is flooded with their cars, but we can't sell a single American car in Europe or in Asia? And you wonder why our auto industry has been decimated? And how come all these factories and plants were gone? And all these people unemployed? And this is what Trump understands. He said it's tied to the fentanyl crisis. That's why on a set of tariffs, Canada, Mexico, China, he imposed a big tariff on the fentanyl issue. And he said, I'll tell you why. Because when the factories left and the auto plants left and the jobs left, the fentanyl moved in. Because fentanyl preys upon hopelessness. It preys upon people who've lost all hope. Because when the plants left, the town was worthless. They lost not just their jobs, their futures, their livelihoods. These towns, the homes' values collapsed overnight. They can't even sell their homes. So they're stuck there with nothing. And then all they have left is fentanyl, which is killing them. So this is what Trump is trying to reverse. 30 years of this. So American workers can have a good job, and American auto companies can come back, and American steel can come back, and American aluminum can come back, and American auto parts can come back. So you can have a good paying job that feeds you and your family, and yeah, maybe send your kids to college. And now the Supreme Court, to me, has shown itself definitively. They are now a globalist institution who are out to sabotage and wreck Trump and his economic agenda to put America first. This was economic treason, as far as I'm concerned. And that's why Trump is so upset, and he should be upset. Dave, final word to you. Am I wrong?
No, Jeff, you're not wrong. He elected these three to get put on the jury and everything else like that. And they turn around and say, no, we're going to just go along with the Democrats. Jeff, I think they got paid. It seems like they all got paid off after they knew what he wanted to do. It seems like they all got paid off to go against him.
You know, and the other thing, Dave, just to jump off of what you're saying, you know, and that's what Trump was telling him, his lawyers, when they were arguing. They said, look, this is not some Ivy League classroom, you know, having a debate about this power or this act or that act, and, you know, what does Congress have control over and what doesn't it have, and separation of powers and blah, 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 blah. He said, do you realize we're talking about millions and millions of people's jobs, their livelihoods, trillions of dollars in investment contracts, things that are going to rebuild towns and cities? We're going to reshore pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, our car industry, rare earth minerals. I mean, he was like he goes, massive entire sectors of our economy are going to boom again. We're going to be an independent country, economically independent. We're no longer just going to be, you know, we're not going to be just consumers and be constantly in debt. We're going to be producers again. We're going to be making stuff again here at home. And workers and middle-class people are really going to benefit. Like, do you understand the implications of what this decision is? And basically what Trump said is, either you're for America and you're for the American worker, or you're against America and the American worker. That this case is that clear-cut. And the Supreme Court basically said, we're against the American worker. Blank you. I mean, again, now we know who our enemies are. Thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it, Dave. Just my opinion. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Good morning, Kuhner Country. I am outraged over this decision. As a patriotic American, I say a big F-U to the six supreme a-holes, because that's what they are, a-holes. The highest court in the nation voted to screw the American worker, the backbone of this great country, without a shadow of a doubt. We finally get a brilliant president that's a master negotiator, and they tie his hands. Again, disgraceful. This is a disgraceful decision. What they are trying to do to our country is equivalent to what COVID did during Trump's first term, is to kill the economy. I have no respect for black robe hacks from coast to coast. They are disgraceful without question. And they are not patriotic Americans. To them, patriotism be damned. This is not the country I grew up in. God, family, and country ruled the day, not Hackorama. Long live President Trump for 100 years or more.
Russ, let me ask you this. Of course, I agree with you, as I like to say, not 100, but 1,000%. But let me just play devil's advocate, because this is the argument that Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett made in siding with Roberts and his majority decision. So they made a conservative, I put conservative in quotes, they made a conservative argument. The argument is that only Congress has the power to impose a tax, to levy a tax, and that a tariff fundamentally is a tax. So according to our founding documents, the Constitution, we have a system of separation of powers, checks and balances. It is not the authority of the president to levy a tariff or a tax. Only the legislative branch, only Congress can do so. And so Gorsuch personally wrote, what he wrote was, if the president wants a tariff, fine, he has to go through Congress to get it. He has to have Congress pass the tariff, and then you can impose, you can impose as many tariffs as you want. but you have to go to Congress and get approval from Congress first. What say you to that argument?
To go to war, we don't have to go to Congress initially, okay? Let's put it that way, okay? We can send troops into harm's way without Congress. Of course, after a certain period of time, then they have to vote to approve it, or they can underfund it, whatever, okay? But let's face it this way. The United States Congress, they are not professional negotiators. They prove it over and over again, because the bottom line is these trade deals, we get screwed. So they're not professional negotiators. President Trump is a professional negotiator. Get the hell out of his way. Let him do his job, and let this country have greatness again, okay? So they're all full of crap, okay? And I'll tell you, I'm sick and tired of lame arguments that are put up by effing idiots, okay? Stupid lame arguments, and especially those that vote for the Democrats, okay? They get BS'd by arguments that make no sense whatsoever, but yet they suck it up like a sponge.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And more than that, notice when Bush or Obama or Biden, whenever they wanted to use their authority on trade without the approval of Congress, no problem. Then it's okay. So, you see, again, one set of rules for Trump, another set of rules for everybody else. And then, let's be honest, Russ, Congress it's not even a swamp anymore. It's a viper's pit. It's a snake pit. Who's going to get anything through Congress? They're shutting down. They've just shut down DHS. We're in the midst of a partial government shutdown. They won't even fund the TSA. They won't even fund FEMA. They won't even fund basic terrorist surveillance here in the United States. So if these Democrats in Congress can't even, support a funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security, you want Trump to go through, I don't mean you, I'm using you as an expression. You want Trump to go through Congress to get tariffs? On what planet? On what planet? So that's why Trump said, yeah, look, I go through Congress, forget it. We're never going to get a tariff on anything. I can't get a 1% tariff on Malaysia if I go through Congress. And by the way, Congress is bought and paid for. That's the dirty little secret. Yes, the founding fathers were right. Of course, in theory, the legislative branch should give the authority for tariffs to the president. But now you're assuming that the legislative branch is not corrupt. You're assuming that the legislative branch, members of Congress, are like the founding fathers. They're not paid shills. They're American patriots. They're not beholden to foreign powers or foreign interests or foreign money. Yeah, so of course. But when China owns Congress, when the Europeans are buying up influence, when the Canadian lobby comes down to Congress and it's just pay, 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 or the Mexicans pay, 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 when you have members of Congress openly saying my allegiance is to Mexico first, or in the case of Ilhan Omar, to Somalia first, we're going to get tariffs? Omar is against tariffs. The pro-Mexican lobby in Congress, they're against tariffs. The pro-China lobby, they're against tariffs. Those that are taking money from Japan, they're against tariffs. Those that are taking money from the Europeans, they're against tariffs. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going through that swamp. You go through that swamp. I'm not going through that swamp. So I don't buy the argument at all. When Congress is this corrupt, the president has no choice but to act. Just my opinion. Russ, thank you for that call. In defense of the national interest, what are we going to do? Continue the insane policy of the last 30-some years? And that's what the Democrats want. So what? We're going to send trillions more to China? What, you want another 50, 60,000 factories to go? What, you want another 6, 7, 8 million jobs to just be outsourced? What, you want to completely wipe out the middle and working class? Not just hollow it out, but just literally just wipe it out? So, what? Are we going to make, are we going to make nothing in this country? And you think we can survive as a nation? 617. Look, COVID showed us. This was the ultimate test. Our supply chains, we can't even produce insulin in this country. Aspirin in this country. We couldn't even make those, those emergency masks, those garbage masks. Even that came from China. So we are so dependent upon other countries, China being number one, that in the time of a quote-unquote healthcare emergency, we can't even do the basics because we're that dependent and that vulnerable. And you're going to tell me this is not a national security crisis? If we were to have another Pearl Harbor, okay, I want you to think about, the military has now come and said this. If we were to have, in other words, if Pearl Harbor was to be attacked again and our Pacific fleet was to be decimated, we do not have the industrial capacity in the United States to mount a war the way we did in World War II. We couldn't turn out the tanks. We couldn't turn out the jeeps. We couldn't turn out the missiles. We couldn't turn out the bombs. We literally would be unable. We do not have the infrastructure to be able to mount an effort like we did in World War II. Why? Because we outsourced steel. We outsourced much of our auto plants or auto vehicles. We have some, but we outsourced a lot. We've outsourced so much of our country to other nations that literally, if we had to refight World War II, we could not refight World War II. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I just want to give this great audience a heads up. At 9:30 later in the show today, 9:30, we are going to have the first of the three Republican candidates for governor on for an exclusive newsmaker interview. Mike Connealy is going to be coming on at 9:30 today. We will have Brian Shortsleeve on Wednesday at 9:30. And tomorrow, it's going to be State Auditor Diana DeZoglio on at 9 o'clock. We are going to be discussing, obviously, the state audit, the fact that she's being stonewalled, or we the people are being stonewalled, and the lawsuit now that is heading to court. So we're going to have Mike Connealy at 9:30. You want to get informed about who to vote for? We're going to start interviewing these candidates. You can then decide for yourself. We're going to have Brian Shortsleeve, another candidate, at 9:30 on Wednesday. Diana DeZoglio will be on tomorrow at 9 o'clock to discuss the state audit and the current lawsuit. We are still waiting on Mike Minogue. So we have put out a request, in fact, multiple requests, to Mike Minogue and his people, and hopefully we'll get him on as well. 617-266-6868. Jerry on the Cape. Thanks for holding, Jerry, and welcome.
Comrade.
Comrade, how are you, my friend?
I called you from Siberia. Jeff, before I get into the Supreme Court ruling, I feel I would be remiss if I didn't mention to you that 3 weeks ago, the Senate Appropriations Committee allocated $5.69 billion for refugee assistance, not resettlement, assistance. So that's almost $6 billion down another rat hole. We got to do away with refugees, with asylum claims, and what have you. That's got to go away. We're not going to attract any good citizens that way. But Jeff, the part that really shocks me about this ruling is Neil Gorsuch. That's the part. I'm not surprised by Roberts or Amy Coney Barrett. We were sold a false bill of goods on her. I don't care what anybody says. She's ruled. She's done things against the conservative movement numerous times now. Numerous times. Jeff, what about when Biden gave the middle finger to the Supreme Court when they told him that he couldn't do the student debt forgiveness? Remember when he did that?
Yes, he just literally he ignored it. He completely ignored it.
But yet they want to put up a cross and nail Trump to it over these tariffs. It's ridiculous, Jeff. It's absolutely absurd. But that part really throws me as Gorsuch. I don't know about you, but that part really surprised me.
That's the one that shocked me. If you were to say to me, Jeff, the Supreme Court is going to rule 6-3 against Trump's tariffs. Okay, it's going to happen. So the three liberals, that's a given. Who would be the three on the so-called conservative side? I'll tell you what I would have said. I would have said Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh. Honestly, that would have been my pick. I would have said, well, no, you're going to have Alito against, right? Alito's he's going to back Trump. Thomas is going to back Trump. And I thought, well, Gorsuch has been a solid conservative. For years, he's been great. So I thought, well, no, the three holdouts, that would be those three. Instead, it was Kavanaugh and maybe one of his most brilliant opinions. I mean, everybody, I've never seen a decision like this, Jerry. You may agree or disagree with this, where everybody's going on about how brilliant the dissent was. Everybody's like, wow, what a dissent. I mean, just destroyed Roberts, destroyed the majority opinion. And then the roadmap, the blueprint that he lays out. So, well, Mr. President, hey, there's still, okay, you lost, but you can invoke Section 122, you can invoke Section 232, you can invoke Section 301. I mean, it's just like, wow. He just basically told Trump, here's exactly how you can keep a lot of these tariffs still in place. And it'll all be legal, it's all kosher, it's all constitutional. So, I gotta say, Kavanaugh really impressed me on this one. But no, what's your theory, Jerry? Look, Amy Coney Barrett, when Trump says afraid of a militant minority, that's Amy Coney Barrett. They threatened her children. That was the radical left, Antifa, and you could tell it really scared her. The foreign powers, the foreign influence, that's Chief Justice Roberts. Gorsuch, what's your theory, comrade?
The part that's shocking. That's why I was so shocked. But then when I listened to Kavanaugh's dissent, when he gave President Trump the roadmap to be able to actually enhance the tariffs, but President Trump went ahead anyway and gave a 15% across-the-board tariff worldwide to everybody. So that may be a stopgap for now. But Jeff, honestly, I don't have a theory on Gorsuch. I'm absolutely dumbfounded by it. I don't know who owns him. I don't know who his masters are.
Well, I'm going to do this, and I know Grace says I'm naive at times, and maybe I'm exposing my naivete, and you're probably going to say the same thing, Jerry, because you're very, you're very much a realist like my wife is. I'm going to give a mulligan. I'm going to give Gorsuch a pass on this one time. And because he's been so good in the past. And maybe this was just an honest philosophical disagreement. These things happen. So we'll see. But if this becomes a pattern, if this is not just once, but it's twice, 3 times, 4 times, then I'm going to say we got to follow the money. We got to follow the money. So, so you're right, Jerry. Look, I was shocked. And I'm hoping it's just a one-off. And it was just more of a kind of a separation of powers issue for Gorsuch. Okay. It's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day. And for you to be able to answer the poll question, you need to hear this clip. So this is after the Supreme Court's ruling striking down Trump's tariffs. And someone called, or a man named John Barron, calls into C-SPAN to rant about this outrageous ruling by the High Court. Now, what's interesting about this is that John Barron used to be Trump's alter ego in the 1980s. Okay, when, he wanted something to be said, he wouldn't use his name. He would use a name, i.e. John Barron. Now, I want to play the clip because a lot of people on the internet, this has the whole internet buzzing. They actually think it's President Trump. They say it sounds like Trump. It's, the person speaks like President Trump, uses words that President Trump uses. And so was this Trump venting by calling into C-SPAN and using his old alter ego name, John Barron? I want to play the clip and then get your reaction. Roll cut 18, Mike.
John in Virginia, Republican. Let's hear from you.
Well, this is John Barron, and this is the worst decision you ever have in your life, practically. Jack's going to agree with me, right? But this is a terrible decision. And you have Hakeem Jeffries, he's a dope, and you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. And you have the woman earlier, I assume she's a woman, she's a Democrat, but she said she's disgraced. She's devastated.
All right,
by
John.
this.
Now, look, I'll be honest with you. I think it's clearly not Trump. It's close, but it's not his voice. And it's a little bit of a parody. And, to me, I think it's pretty obvious. It's someone pretending to be Trump and using the name John Barron. But anyway, I want to ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. A C-SPAN caller identified himself as John Barron, an alias used by President Trump in the 1980s and 1990s, and raged against the SCOTUS opinion on tariffs. Was it Trump himself? A, yes. B, no. You heard the clip. You tell me, do you think that was truly Trump, or do you think it was someone just imitating Trump? I'm a no on this. This, to me, I can tell is pretty clearly not Trump. Someone pretending to be Trump, or whatever, pretending to be John Barron. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner. wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle on X, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. John in Dunstable. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Jeff, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, John.
Jeff, I don't even know where to begin with this. This is disgusting. We've seen that most judges in this country are corrupt. We've seen what happened to President Trump when he was running for presidency. And to be honest with you, Jeff, I kind of blame President Trump for what's happening now. I mean, the guy's a great guy. Love him like a brother. I did a lot of stuff when he was running. But in my opinion, Jeff, the man's doing the wrong thing. And I think he's going to be done, Jeff, at the end, because I got a sneaky feeling, Jeff, that the Dems are going to take over in another 7.5, 8 months. And then that man and his family are going to be bankrupt. They're going to torture that guy and take every cent he's got if they get in again. And I hope to God it doesn't happen. I've said it talking to you before, Jeff. That man has to straighten out the USA. Stop going all around the world, straightening out other countries. Straighten out America. Now, is Amy Coney Barrett She's a disgusting pig as far as I'm concerned. But is she scared? You can tell, Jeff, that she's scared. Why wasn't Schumer arrested? Why wasn't he arrested for inciting the riot with the Antifa and those other losers that were threatening the Supreme Court judges? Why is Omar got $35 million and we know about it? Nothing's happening. Why does Somali have billions of dollars? B with a B, billions. And there's so much more that all us regular Americans can see, and nothing is being done about it, Jeff. I mean, it's going to come down, like a few people have said, Jeff, it's going to come down to if the Americans want to save this country, they got to get out into the street. That's what's going to have to happen, Jeff, or we're going to be done, Jeff.
Well, John, look, look, Amy Coney Barrett's been getting death threats. That's been widely reported. They went in front of Kavanaugh's house, urged on by Schumer, this rabid left-wing mob, and they burned him in effigy, and they threatened to murder him. They did the same thing to Sam Alito. They broke into Kavanaugh's house, one of them did, and they tried to murder him and his family. And so if Amy Coney Barrett is too intimidated, which is fine, honestly, look, she's a mother. From all accounts, she's a very loving mother. She's an excellent mother. So if she's too afraid because she's worried about her family, the safety of her children, which is a normal, natural motherly instinct, please don't get me wrong. But if you're too afraid to do the job, then step down. Then step down. You have, to me, a moral, ethical obligation. If you're not up to do the job and you can't do it to the best of your abilities as objectively and impartially as possible, then you have an awesome responsibility. You're one of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court. You know, as Trump said, this is not a game. We're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars, countless people's jobs, livelihoods, the national security, the economic security of the United States. We're talking about trade deals now with some of the biggest countries, the biggest powers in the world. This is all on the line. Now, if you can't do your job because you're too afraid that Antifa is going to put a bullet in your head or one of your children, then fine, just step down. But if you're going to continue to acquiesce to threats, to intimidation, to blackmail, to bullying, then I'm sorry, you have to step down. Okay, listen now to President Trump saying for him, this was one of the most important cases, not just for his presidency, but for the country itself. And now the Supreme Court has dealt it a body blow. Roll cut 3, Mike.
This was an important case to me, more as a symbol of economic national security, and also, I would say, just for our country itself, so important, because we're doing so well as a country. We've never done so well. The good news is that there are methods, practices, statutes, and authorities, as recognized by the entire court in this terrible decision, and also as recognized by Congress, which they refer to, that are even stronger than the IEEPA tariffs available to me as President of the United States. And in actuality, I was very modest in my ask of other countries and businesses because I wanted to do, and it's very important, I want to be very well behaved.
Now, when he says IEEPA, he means the IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which is what he invoked for so many of his tariffs over the last year. Now, look, he's right, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. He's got other weapons at his disposal, sort of tariff tools in the box. The problem is that they expire after 150 days. So, yes, He can invoke Section 22 of the 1974 Trade Act. There's also Section 232, Section 301. You can get confused with all these different numbers. But essentially, and he just imposed a 15% global tariff on all countries, all goods coming in. That's all. It's fine. It's going to soften, as I said. It's going to absorb some of the shock and the blow that the Supreme Court now has leveled on him. The problem is we had a stable tariff regime. Trump was done pretty much with all the negotiations. Everything was in place. We had a deal now with the EU. We had a deal with India. We had a deal with Japan. We had a deal with most countries around the world. And that's why with this new stability, you could see it over the last couple months. The economy now was really starting to take off. Because now the investments were pouring in, the jobs are we're starting to see fruit, plants were being built, manufacturing was being reshored, factories were now being built. Now this throws this into chaos because, okay, Trump can maybe get another 150 days, 5 months. But then what after 5 months? Is he going to have to renew them again? Will that be challenged again in the courts? Is he going to try to go to Congress and make a deal? The Democrats don't want to give him any trade authority whatsoever. So the problem is, in the short term, he can alleviate or reduce the effect or the impact of the Supreme Court. But in the long term, they've taken a wrecking ball to his America First trade agenda. And the trade is linked to rebuilding America. Now, if you're a Canadian company, just before the tariff ruling, a day before, okay, big story in Michigan. Didn't get a lot of national play, but in Michigan, huge. A Canadian company saying, look, I want to avoid the tariffs, decided to buy a key plant in Michigan and say we're going to keep all the jobs there in Michigan because we don't want to have to pay the tariff. So they're moving from Canada into Michigan. They bought a Michigan plant that was about to go down. It was about to go bankrupt. And because of the tariffs, saved countless jobs. In fact, it was very moving. You see all these people who work, these Michiganders, all of these, Americans who work at that plant, crying, tears of joy, crying, saying, thank you, President Trump. Your tariff saved our jobs, our towns, our livelihoods, our communities. Well, now, is the deal on or is the deal off? Because if the Supreme Court says, well, he doesn't have the authority to levy these tariffs, and Trump is vowing to reenact the tariffs, but the Canadians are going to say, and not just the Canadians, anybody is going to say, yeah, but that's only good for 5 months. What happens after 5 months? So maybe we shouldn't buy the plant and save those jobs. You see, that's the problem now. They've put him now in a bind, in a straitjacket. They're tying his hands. And I believe that was done deliberately. Right at the moment that we have takeoff, right at the moment now that all the pieces are in place, as I said earlier, and now the economy is about to really boom. And what did they do? They just cut the legs out from underneath him. 617-266-6868 is the number. Now, just very quick. He said, look, I respect the Supreme Court. I never want to tamper with its independence. He goes, but you have to understand how upset and angry I am. Because what do you think has been going on when you see this manufacturing renaissance? The stock market now over 50,000. The S&P over 7,000. Where people said we wouldn't see these kinds of numbers in 3, 4, 5 years. But it all happened in a year under my watch. That was all because of the tariffs. We were reshaping the economy. We were rebuilding the economy. We were taking it from an economy that was benefiting the globalist elites, where wealth was transferring upwards and out of the country, into an economy where the wealth comes back into the country and towards the middle working class middle. Roll cut 3A, Mike.
I didn't want to do anything that would affect the decision of the court, because I understand the court. I understand how they are very easily swayed. I want to be a good boy. I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broken 50,000 on the Dow, and simultaneously, and even more amazingly, broken 7,000 on the S&P, two numbers that everybody thought upon our landslide election victory could not be attained. Think of that. Nobody thought it was possible to do it within 4 years, and we did it in 1 year.
Well, there you go. You see? You get the momentum. His point is, look at the momentum now. It's growing, it's building. Everything now is starting to click on all cylinders. The stock market is roaring. The S&P is roaring. Inflation is coming down. Economic growth now is really starting to kick into a higher gear. You've got trillions of dollars being invested. It's all, and with Powell gone in a couple months, the last piece, you'll have even lower interest rates, and that's going to kickstart homes and home buying. So it was all coming together. Now they've thrown a monkey wrench, deliberately thrown a monkey wrench. Now, I just want to say one other quick thing, and then I promise I'm going to go back to the phone lines. Do you remember when he first announced his tariffs? And the hysteria from the Democrats and from the rhinos, and especially the media. Do you remember? Just go back about a year, if you can remember. This was going to lead to a depression. Do you remember that? The stock market's going to crash. Do you remember that? We're going to have soaring inflation. Oh, my God. Consumers are going to have to eat this. Everything's going to go up 25%. Remember this? It was going to be an economic disaster. It was going to be a depression. It was the end of the world. I had listeners of this show livid at me for defending Trump's tariffs because they said that their stock portfolio had gone down 6, 7, 8%. And they were like, I'm suffering. My stock portfolio, it just took a hit. It's down 7%. This is unsustainable. I didn't vote for this. And I remember saying to myself, relax, have a drink, take it easy. The market goes up, the market goes down. You put the fundamentals in place, like what Trump is doing, and believe me, in the mid to long term, everything will not just work out okay, it will boom. A rising tide will lift all boats. But I also thought to myself, we're really screwed as a country. I hate to say it. Nobody can even absorb a little bit of short-term pain, some little sacrifice. And, and we're not talking, you're going hungry, or there's no food on the table, or, you're paying $4, $5, $6, $7, $800 more for electricity, or, whatever. I'm talking about a blip in your stock market portfolio, which, by the way, was erased within a couple months, and now you're making your stock portfolios way up. But you can't even handle for 2 weeks looking at your stock portfolio down 6, 7, 8%. And I remember saying to myself, we're done. We're done. We could never refight World War II. I'm telling you this right now. Where people had to, there was rationing and you couldn't buy many things and people really had to sacrifice, tighten their belts. Now, my stock portfolio is down 7%. Well, are you planning to cash out your stock portfolio? No. It's basically my retirement. What are you planning to retire? Well, 10 years. So you're worried about in 10 years because your portfolio went down 6, 7, 8%? Because Trump is readjusting the economy to benefit, the working middle class and take it away from the elites and the bankers and the corporate interests, the globalists who've been screwing us now for 30, 40 years? Like, okay, I don't know what to tell you, man. Okay. So, no, look, I am an economic patriot. I always have been. I am not a free trader. I've never been a free trader. I believe in economic patriotism, like George Washington on. We build things in America by American workers for American consumers. And we have the biggest, wealthiest market in the world. And we have allowed other countries, because they've been buying influence and buying our politicians, to take advantage of our market, screwing us. American manufacturers, American business owners, American workers, while they keep our products out of their markets. It has been blatantly unfair trade. And I just want to play this cut from Trump, and then I'm going to go to all of you. Listen now to Trump saying, you know how much of our car business we've lost over the last 30 years? He's just using cars as an example. I mean, what do you want? Pharmaceuticals, steel, aluminum. I could run down the whole, you name me the industry. And we just take beating after beating after beating. Listen now to Trump. Roll cut 9A, Mike.
The good news is, it's like Justice Kavanaugh said, very strongly said, you have other ways you can go. You don't have to go that way. You can go other way. There are numerous other ways you can go. And frankly, this should have been done by presidents many years ago. They allowed our country to be eaten alive. We lost 50% of our car business. We used to make cars. We made all the cars. And then Mexico came, Canada came, Japan and Germany. But they're all coming back now. They're all coming back at record levels.
Detroit that whole area now it's a renaissance again. Ford, GM, they're openly saying it. We're getting, this is taking us back 30, 40, 50 years. They're running 3 shifts. Ford is now at many of their plants, they're running 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. One day they don't work, but 6 days a week, 24/6, 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. They're running 3 shifts. I mean, that's what Trump has done. And this is going to put all of this in jeopardy. And look, I want to say one last thing, because this is the debate that Grace and I have been having now for months and months and months. And her argument, I understand it. Many people hold this position. It's a very respectable, intelligent, coherent position. It's not a ridiculous position, which is that Trump should not be imposing these kind of 25% tariffs on our friends and allies. China, yes. Other, countries that really abuse us, yes. But why Canada, as an example? Or why the Europeans? Why the British? Why the Germans? Why the Italians? Why the French? These are our friends. These are our allies. So why is Trump doing this? It's needless. It's provocative. It's alienating them. It's dividing us from our closest friends and allies. And this has always been my counter argument. And you tell me if you agree or disagree. If you keep dumping goods and products into our country, If you keep engaging in unfair trade practices, to put it plainly, if you keep screwing us over and over and over again, here, let's just take Canada, okay? It's one of our biggest trading partners. If they keep dumping their automobiles into our country, they dump steel, they dump aluminum, they dump timber, they dump dairy, milk, cheese, you name it. So they come in no tariff whatsoever. Yet they have, take dairy, they protect their milk market, they protect their dairy farmers like you wouldn't believe. You send in American milk into Canada, 270% tariff. Our cheese, Wisconsin, for example, makes great cheese. Ask the cheese producers in Wisconsin, you want to sell to Canada? 250% tariff. Steel, aluminum, timber, automobiles, 150%, 100%. Well, how is that friendship? That's not friendship. Where I come from, that's stabbing you in the back. That's being a friend to your face and shanking you in the back. It's like this is the way I said to Grace, and she didn't like this. I said, it's like you go out to dinner with your friends. Okay, to me, among friends, you don't count pennies. Friends are friends. So we go out for dinner. One time I pay. The next time you pay. Whatever. Now, I'm not going to count. Well, we had lobster, and that time I paid, and now we're going out for burgers, and this time you paid, and lobster is much more expensive than burgers are. Look, you go out, you're friends. Hey, let me pick up the tab this time. Had a great time. Next time, you know what? You paid last time. Let me pay this time. That's what friends do, okay? And we're not going to, get a ledger and how much was the bill the last time? How much was the bill this time? You don't do that among friends. So, to me, that's friendship. But friendship is not, and that's what they're doing to us. Every time we go out for dinner, I pay and you don't? But every time? No matter what? Every time. We go out for steaks, I pay. We go out for fish, I pay. We go out for sandwiches, I pay. And I pay for the beer, and I pay for the wine, and I pay for the dessert, and I pay for the champagne, and hey, whoa. You're playing me for a sucker. That's what you're doing. You're using me. Okay? You're exploiting me. Friends don't do that. By the way, they do the same thing on defense. We don't need you. I'm sorry. You don't contribute enough to protect us. We protect you. You don't protect us. So you're free riding off of us. So how is that a quote-unquote friend or ally? They're not behaving like friends or allies. The Germans. We rebuilt Germany. To this day, we protect Germany. We built up Germany. The Marshall Fund. Okay, we put in a massive foreign aid package that put Germany was flat on its back. It was in tatters after World War II. We rebuilt Germany. They put a 10% tariff on every American car, SUV, truck, any vehicle going into Deutschland, okay, into Germany. We have a 2% tariff. 10 to 2. Now you know why you can't see an American car in Germany. It's the richest country in Europe. They got a big internal market. They're not buying practically a single Ford or a single GM. Why? Because they're tariffing the hell out of us. And so Trump said, whoa, what's this? I see Volkswagens here. I see BMWs. I see Audis. I see Mercedes. I go to Germany, I can't see one American car. And you're telling me this is friendship? No. You're ripping us off. You're taking advantage of us, okay? You're a false friend. You're what they call a freeloader. And those days are over. So, to me, that's why we need the tariffs. And that's why Trump said they're reciprocal tariffs. Okay, the Supreme Court now declares Trump's tariffs illegal. Agree, disagree? And what do you make of Trump's response? In fact, there was even some question whether he would disinvite some of the Supreme Court justices to his State of the Union address tomorrow. His answer? Well, I really don't want to have them there, but they're still invited. Kind of, sort of, grudgingly. But what do you make of his attack on the justices who voted against him on the ruling, saying they should be ashamed of themselves and that they are in the pay of foreign influence and foreign interests? Did Trump cross the line? 617-266-6868 is the number. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Yeah, Jeff.
Bob, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I have a question for you. You know, is it possible that if these different countries won't be fair with us, that the president can stop them from sending anything into this country? Never mind tariffs, just you can't ship to us anymore and put a blockage up there. Wouldn't that smarten them up?
Well, the only problem with that is, Bob, is that, how do I say this? We've become so dependent upon so many goods and products and services from other countries that it would implode our economy. It would destroy, it would collapse our economy. In other words, this is Trump's argument, and Vance is with him on this all the way. To really make us economically independent, it can't be done in a year or even 4 years. It's going to take several administrations. It's going to take a 10-year period. Let's say pharmaceuticals. Insulin, like I need insulin for my diabetes. I take insulin actually twice a day. We don't produce insulin domestically. We're starting to now. But we're still dependent on other countries for a lot of our insulin. Well, I mean, I don't have insulin, I'm dead. So I'm just giving insulin as an example. So that's the problem, Bob. I think Trump would love to do it, just turn the tap off. But and the more dependent you are, the more vulnerable you are. And that's what Trump keeps warning us about. And look, to be fair, I know I've been going on against the Canadians, but it's one thing to depend on Canada or Sweden or whatever, Britain or Australia, because, let's be honest, they did send, for example, troops in Afghanistan when we were attacked. We have a long-standing relationship with them. It's been a very good relationship, for the most part. But when you're dependent upon China, when you're dependent upon Brazil, they're led now by this radical anti-American leftist. When you're dependent upon countries around the world that really hate our guts and can't stand us, you're asking for trouble. And you're going to get trouble. And I think that's why Trump keeps saying, look, this is not a question of just jobs and prices and, whatever. It costs a little more, costs a little less. This is our national economic security that's at stake. Why have presidents allowed this to happen? And the answer is because they've all been bought and paid for. They're doing the interests of their globalist paymasters. They're not serving the interests of the American people. And that's why Trump now is considered such a threat. Because unlike Biden, unlike Obama, unlike George W. Bush, unlike Bill Clinton, unlike Bush 41, and by the way, the Bushes got in bed with Saudi Arabia, they got in bed with China, the Clintons got in bed, they got in bed with everybody. The Obamas, ditto. Biden owned by China. Ukraine too, but owned by China. And that's why Trump is saying, look, what self-respecting president would allow them to do to our country what they've done over the last 30-some years? And that's why the ones that were popping the biggest champagne corks were the communists in Beijing and the trade fraudsters and scammers in Ottawa and in Brussels. Because now they're saying, hey, the Supreme Court just did our work for us. And that's why Trump is so furious. A final word to you, Bob.
Because I'm really, really worried. Actually, I'm scared what I'm seeing this country turning into. And I was grasping at any straw I could, so.
Well, look, the good news is many of the tariffs are still going to be there. Maybe a little lower, but for the most part, for at least another 5 to 6 months. So, and then Trump's going to have to make a big decision on what to do. So they were anticipating this, and they were preparing, and Trump is prepared. But no, look, Bob, I've said this many times before. This is nothing new. Go to Walmart. I don't know if you shop at Walmart, but just go to Walmart, just for the hell of it. Okay, just to give everyone another heads up, in less than an hour now, 57 minutes, we will be having the first of 3 Republican candidates for the governorship of Massachusetts on. Mike Connealy is up first today at 9:30, and I'll be asking him some obvious questions about where he stands on the issues so you can be better informed on which of the 3 you want to support and vote in the primary and, of course, in the general election. So Mike Connealy, Republican candidate for governor, will be on in just less than an hour at 9:30. Hope all of you can tune in. It should be a lot of fun. 617-266-6868. Sharon in Medford. Thanks for holding, Sharon, and welcome.
I just want to make it brief, and I tried to sum up my thoughts this morning. It's a very important issue. First of all, not for flattery, I think of you. I think of most of all of your listeners. I think of my friends and myself as pretty bright people. A few of us are highly educated. That being said, I would say 2/3 of the newer voters for Trump were swayed, especially when went into New York with that great speech that he gave before the election. Do not speak English. Don't read a newspaper. Maybe they cannot afford cable to watch Newsmax, etc. They're voting with their wallets. Tariffs scared everyone. I understand it in the long run. Jeff, you probably understand it in the long run. They needed somebody, a plainsman, even like a Lindsey Graham, to be a spokesman on some good channel to understand and show a chart and show how it would work. But did he have to start at 70% in some of the countries? People really got scared. So I really was wishing that what he did in the beginning is what's ending up now. He just should have said everybody across the board, 10 to 12%, like it or leave it, with that new article that he may be able to do that under. If he had done that in the first place, like a kid who comes home and tells a lie and then finally the truth comes out and the parents say, oh, that wasn't so bad at all. At least nobody would have been affected mentally about this. I am a little bit nervous now about the midterms. I'm wicked, wicked happy about Georgia. I think it's going to be a forefronting statement to the rest of the country. But the president really needs, if I'm not mistaken, to go on once a month like Bush did, Reagan, and Kennedy, and have a chat and explain things that are going on and how it affects them and how he will continue to work for us. I really thank you for the time, Jeff, and you have a safe day, everyone, in the blizzard. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sharon. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the messaging on the tariffs could have been much, much better. And the media, I thought, did a very good job in co-opting the issue, and the Democrats, fear-mongering, scaring people into thinking the sky was going to fall, that prices were going to go through the roof, the stock market was going to crash, that Trump was behaving so radically and recklessly. I think Trump should have taken more time to explain the tariffs and to get a very good spokesman to constantly defend the tariffs. And I think initially he tried to do too much too fast. You know, when he came out with that chart with all these different countries and every country or almost every country had a different tariff rate, it just seemed too chaotic and too confusing. But to be fair, that changed after a couple months. And then he got a much more stable tariff regime in place, or a tariff structure in place. And, you know, now it's 15%, and with a little extra for China, or the biggest cheaters out there. So we'll see what happens. But look, it took a while, but the tariffs worked. I mean, you know, just think about it. Inflation is now down to 2.4%. So it didn't lead to this massive increase in inflation. The stock market is at a record high. In fact, it achieved a record high quicker than anybody thought imaginable. We're talking trillions of dollars in investment pouring into the country. The economy now is starting to get hot, hot, hot. When you have a high growth, low inflation economy, and wages now are starting to go up, and they're starting to outpace inflation. So you have more take-home pay. So it was all coming together beautifully. And now, look, they had to try to do something to derail the economy because they want to hurt him in the midterms. You're completely right, Sharon. They want Trump to lose and lose big in the midterms. And if the economy is booming by the summer and early fall, it's going to be almost impossible for the Democrats to win, especially if they can pass the SAVE Act. And here came the Supreme Court. You know, A2, Amy Coney Barrett. A2, Chief Justice Roberts. A2, Neil Gorsuch. This was a huge victory for the globalists. And the Supreme Court stabbed Trump and, more importantly, America right in the back. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
And like Neil Diamond famously said, money talks, it don't sing and dance, and it don't walk. I mean, this is as clear as glass is what's going on here. You had more than 1,000 corporations sue the Trump administration before the Supreme Court made a decision as to whether or not what he was doing was illegal. And leading the charge was Walmart. Now, Walmart is the world's biggest retailer. They take in $7 billion annually. They operate in 119 countries. And so I guess he has to make deals with those 119 countries. And why Trump is so upset, he keeps mentioning automobiles, is because the price of an automobile right now, the average price is $50,000. And as you said, you go to these companies, Japan, for instance, the only American car that you could probably find there is a Jeep product, and they have to be modified by the dealership before they put it on the lot. 94% of every vehicle sold in Japan is either a Toyota, a Honda, a Subaru. They're all domestically made. So that's why he's big on these big ticket items, Jeff. And maybe what he should do is say, look, to these countries that are shipping the cars in, like Japan. Right now, Toyota has 5 plants in the United States, but they also send in cars from Canada, from Mexico. Maybe what he should say is, we are not going to allow any of your cars to be imported here. In order for you to meet the supply and demand, you're going to have to build more manufacturing plants to make more jobs for more Americans. You know, you gave that analogy, but I'll give you a better one. You know, it's like a guy and his wife and their next-door neighbor. They go out to a different restaurant every week to eat, and the neighbor's always insistent. He grabs the check and pays the check. This goes on for about a year until the guy finally finds out.
Well, they've been screwing us. I'll tell you this, CJ. CJ, are you shocked that the Supreme Court did this? I get Roberts. He's always been a Judas. But that it would be Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch, that they would give the two decisive votes, and it turned out into a 6-3 decision. Were you surprised at that, CJ?
To find out what they have in their portfolios. As it's been, investigation after investigation after investigation about Pelosi and others doing inside trading. It did not surprise me at all what is happening. They want Donald Trump to fail. That's the bottom line. And it's big business that is doing this. And, Americans have to wake up. They have to wake up to what's going on in this country. They are selling this country out. And why it is a national security issue is that.
CJ, hang on. I want you to finish your thought on the other side. Okay, we will be having Mike Connealy on in 40 minutes at 9:30. He is a Republican candidate, one of the three, running for governor here in Massachusetts. And, of course, we will be asking him the questions that you want asked, and hopefully he will answer them. Okay, tomorrow is a highly, highly expected State of the Union address. President Trump will be talking to the whole country, and in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling declaring his tariffs illegal, basically they shot down his tariffs. Listen now to Trump. He is asked by a reporter, well, when you say that these justices are being swayed by foreign interests, who in particular are you talking about? Number one. And number two, these conservative justices that you are furious with, have you disinvited them from the State of the Union? Are they now no longer welcome? Listen to Trump's response. Roll cut 9, a mic.
What will you say to foreign nations who seek to renegotiate their deals? And what did you mean a moment ago when you said that the Supreme Court has been swayed by foreign interests?
Well, I think that foreign interests are represented by people that I believe have undue influence, have a lot of influence over the Supreme Court, whether it's through fear or respect or friendships, I don't know. But I know some of the people that were involved on the other side, and I don't like them. I think they're real slime balls. And got to do what's right for the country. You got to do what's right for the Constitution. That's why I respect so much Justice Thomas and Alito, Kavanaugh, because they not only dissented, their dissent is so strong. When you read their dissent, a lot of times you'll read a dissent and it's like, well, you don't know, it could go either way. There's no other way.
And anyway, but now they are coming. He was funny. He goes grudgingly. He says grudgingly, they are still invited. 617-266-6868. Barbara in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi,
the only thing I wanted to say was I think it was awful what they did with the tariffs, the Supreme Court. I think it was awful. And I think we should start voting out all these Democrats.
Oh, I agree. I completely agree. But, the problem now is, Mike, can we reconnect with CJ? Because I wanted to go to CJ, but he's not on the board. So hopefully we can reconnect with CJ because let's see if we can reconnect because I wanted to go back to CJ and have CJ finish his point. But anyway, Barbara, just to get to your point. Okay, all right. Do the best that you can. They're in my ear. They're anyway. So, but anyway, we'll see if we can reconnect with CJ. Barbara, look, I think what's troubling. You're right. Look, the Democrats are out to destroy Trump's presidency. That's why they were jubilant. They were ecstatic when the ruling was handed down Friday morning. CNN, MS Now, the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Washington Post. I have never seen them so happy. because they knew this was the biggest defeat Trump's ever suffered at the Supreme Court. There's no question. But I think what makes it so bitter for Trump, and frankly for me and many MAGA supporters, is that the dagger wasn't put in so much by Sotomayor or Kagan or Ketanji Brown Jackson, the Democrats on the high court. The ultimate dagger was put in by Roberts, Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett. And Trump went to the wall to get Amy Coney Barrett confirmed. I mean, they threw everything but the kitchen sink at her. And I think that's the part that really is a very bitter pill for Trump to swallow. Because it's one thing to fight your enemy. And say what you want about the Democrats. They tell us they're our enemy. They're not holding back. Okay? They want to destroy Trump. They want to destroy the country. They want to destroy our movement. But it's the Judas in the back. It's the one who whispers in your ear and claims to be your friend, and yet just keeps knifing you and betraying you and betraying you. And I think that's the problem, is what do we do with these Judas conservatives and these Judas Republicans? So anyway, thank you very much for that call, Barbara. I really, really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. This is from Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent out in the Pittsburgh area. Jeff, and here's what he messaged me. Jeff, Amy Coney Barrett is afraid of her own shadow. She needs to step down. She is a huge disappointment. I agree. I really had high hopes for her. The Amy Coney Barrett that is now Justice Barrett, the one that we've seen on the Supreme Court, is very different from the Amy Coney Barrett that was a professor at Notre Dame University that I watched, I saw. I mean, she was tremendous. She was tremendous. And suddenly she got on the court, and I don't know if it's money, but it's certainly intimidation. They went after her, they threatened her children, and everything since then has changed. And for whatever reason, Roberts has taken her under his wing. And from what I've read, these are in media accounts, you can hear at times Roberts yelling and screaming at her, berating her on certain issues if he's not happy with the way she's ruling. So it's almost like a form of abuse where he's yelling, screaming. He wants a moderate court, not a conservative court. He wants to protect its political reputation. Now, the only silver lining out of this entire decision, okay, is no one is going to tell me anymore, the way the left has been saying in the media for 3 years now. Sorry, for the last 10 years. What 3 years? For the last 10 years, that the Supreme Court is a rubber stamp for Trump. That the Supreme Court is just, bends the knee to Trump. That no matter what, it always sides with Trump. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So, at the very least, going forward, the Democrats now, because that's one of their arguments for packing the Supreme Court, they said, well, it's just a Trump court. It's just a rubber stamp for Trump. So that's why we've got to have, 13 or 17 or 21 or whatever, 25 justices. Just pack it. Why would you need to pack it? They just slapped Trump right in the face. So don't tell me anymore that the court does Trump's bidding, because on this case, they gave him the ultimate middle finger. Agree, disagree. Dan in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. I think President Trump needs to go on offense with these tariffs, and here's how I think we can bring in Democrats. Your wife Grace asked you, why are we tariffing European nations? Well, businesses in Europe, they get to deal with a government subsidized healthcare system. Businesses over here are expected to pay for a private health insurance, which is much more expensive. So tariffs are a way to level the playing field. My proposal is Trump should raised about $280 billion last year in tariffs. Obamacare cost $135 billion. The COVID subsidies that the Democrats are whining about, that cost $40 billion. There's an extra $100 billion that he could give everyone like you and me and everyone on private health insurance. It's about $600 for our health savings accounts. Turn this issue into a health care issue. What do you think?
Oh, I like it. I like it. I think Trump's got to be very creative now. I agree with you. At a minimum, send a check. A tariff check, saying, "Look, we're getting all this massive revenue from these tariffs, and I'm going to give you all a check because ultimately it's your money." I mean, I like your idea of helping people help pay for their expensive health insurance. But whatever road he goes, I don't care. Door 1, door 2, door 3. I agree with you. He's got to go on offense. And you mentioned the point. Their healthcare system is subsidized, the government-run healthcare system. That's a cost that businesses offload onto the taxpayers. We don't have that here for the most part. That's a massive unfair advantage. And Trump has got to explain that and say, look, you don't understand. They have unfair advantage after unfair advantage after unfair advantage. And we're losing millions of jobs. It's hurting us. It's hurting you. And not just, bad jobs. These are good paying, working middle-class jobs like we used to have. You can raise a family. You can pay a mortgage. You can put a roof over your head. Hell, even have some money left over for a vacation every year. Those days are gone. And that all began with NAFTA. NAFTA was the beginning. And then it just got worse and worse. And then when they put China in the World Trade Organization, essentially having free trade with China, that was it. That's when the dam really broke. Really broke. So it was economic treason. It was an economic betrayal. And, it's what Trump said in his press conference. All I'm trying to do is help the country. All I'm trying to do is follow the Constitution and help our country and help the forgotten American. And I've got opposition left, right, and center. It really is incredible. Dan, I've got to ask you, do you think Trump can bounce back from this? Can he make a deal with Congress and maybe get some of these tariffs passed in Congress so they're going to be durable and they can last for decades? Or do you think he's going to have to play this game of, invoking this statute and that statute and this section and that section and, 122 of the Trade Act and, 232, 301. Is he going to have to play these games, or can he make a deal, even with some progressive Democrats who say they don't like some of these trade deals? So there is a potential deal there, but will the Democrats give him a victory? That's the question. What say you?
He has to swallow the bitter pill. I think all of us do, about if he can link this and then give the Democrats their COVID subsidy discounts that for the health insurance on Obamacare and tie it to funding Obamacare and make it about fairness. I think he can do it. And then if the Democrats don't want to vote for this, then he can just go back to them and say they're against health care. You gotta play their game. If he's talking about statutes and this and that, he's already lost.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it, Dan. 617-266-6868. John in Worcester. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
being a long time, I don't think anybody's touching on something that is so pertinent that everybody I know that voted for Trump, including myself 3 times, is talking about. And the elephant in the room is, I'm going to bring it up, it's the Epstein files. And we feel like the protection of the top of these people in these businesses that we're protecting, I say we want them to crash these businesses to the ground, confiscate their money, and put them in prison. If he doesn't address that, we're going to lose the midterms. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to feel like the same thing is going on. He's not doing it. He may be doing something about it behind the scenes that we're not seeing, but if he doesn't address this, I'm afraid that we're going to lose the midterms and we're going to lose everything. And there's no way out of this. It has to be addressed. These people have to be taken down. We see what's going on. We see who runs these businesses. We don't care if a lot of us are saying we don't care if our 401ks crash, if this is going to continue. Am I wrong? Am I right? We're all talking about it. Everybody in my circle. We all voted for Trump 3 times. I would vote for him in 2028 if he just addressed that issue and made sense of it for me.
Well, look, let me put it to you this way, John. I voted for Trump for several reasons. Number one, to me, the number one reason why I voted for him was to stop Biden's border invasion, to secure the border, and to deport every single illegal alien out, to save our country, to repel this invasion. My second reason to vote for him was to drain the swamp, to put these Democrat criminals, these deep state criminals, and this includes Epstein, the most powerful, wealthy globalists in the world. What you're seeing in the Epstein files is a who's who of the globalist elite. Okay, these are these Wall Street, big business, billionaire donor, Hollywood celebrity vultures. Vultures that not only feasted on us and on our livelihoods and our jobs over the last, and our wealth over the last 30 to 40 years, they literally feasted on young underage girls. Okay? They're the scum of the scum. That's what they are. They're modern day Caligulas. You don't get worse than these people. And so I want them to go to jail. That's it. And let the chips fall where they may. If it brings down Republicans, I don't care. If it brings down the most powerful people in Wall Street, I don't care. Hollywood, I don't care. The international business elite, I don't care. The most powerful leaders and prime ministers around the world, including leaders here in Congress or in the United States, I don't care. And number 3, I'm always been an economic patriot. I wanted him to impose tariffs like he did in his first term and rebuild our industrial base, our manufacturing base, our supply chain, and yes, rebuild good-paying American jobs so we can have a real middle working class. Now, there are other issues as well, but you're asking me, Jeff, what were your top 3 issues? 1, 2, 3. That's what I voted for. So if he doesn't deliver, then he's got a big problem. And I'll tell you this, John, this is my concern now, okay? It's not just that the Democrats are going to win the midterms, which is now very possible, and they're going to impeach him, and they're going to defund him, and they're going to investigate him, and they're going to abolish ICE. And in other words, throw the country into havoc and into chaos. I'm going to play the cut from Susan Rice. I'll probably do it on tomorrow's show. She's let the cat out of the bag. They're coming for vengeance. She said, if you think we're going to let all these Trump supporters go after voting for Trump, or anybody in the media who supports him, or anybody in the business community that decided to collaborate, or in her word, collaborate, to cooperate with Trump and work with Trump, She goes, you got another thing coming. Revenge is a dish best served cold. That's what she said. We are going to come after every single one of them. We're going to bankrupt them. We're going to persecute them. She's talking now about camps, sending people to re-education camps. I mean, destroying their lives, framing them and getting them thrown in jail. This woman is effing sick. I was going to use the F-bomb. She's effing sick. But that's just a taste of what we're going to get should we lose the midterms. So I want everybody to understand, it's not just Trump who's going to be in the sling and his family who's going to be in the sling. You and me and all of us, we're going to be in the sling. That's the problem. Because they're so full of hatred now and resentment and rage that we dared to defeat them, that we dared to potentially now overturn their regime that they have installed upon us. They're out for blood. I've never seen someone talk like her. And she didn't do this behind closed doors. She did it on a podcast. So she knew her words were going to go public. So you can hear the bloodlust in her voice. This is the radical communist left. And Trump has now smoked them out. He's exposed them. So, my advice to him and his people, you better win the midterms. Because if you don't, I'm telling you, the left is coming for all of us. 617-266-6868 is the number. John, thank you so much for that call. That's why my advice to him is release every single Epstein file. At this point, just tear the whole damn thing down. If it's war they want, then give them a political war. Okay, we're going to have Mike Connealy, Republican candidate for Massachusetts governor, on in about 10 minutes at 9:30. You don't want to miss it. But first, the Supreme Court now says Trump's tariffs are illegal. Historic ruling, a repudiation of Trump's tariffs. This took place Friday morning. Trump obviously livid. My question to you, agree, disagree, and did Trump cross the line when he began to denounce certain justices as essentially committing economic treason, being under the influence of foreign interests, and saying that they should be utterly ashamed of themselves? 617-266-6868 is the number. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Jeff, I'm going to start right in. I think Trump had every reason to say what he said. They are treasonous. They're insurrectionists of a form. They also, in this particular country, we're actually in a state of emergency. You described a state of emergency because, let's face it, if Trump does not win these midterms, they're going to hang him and they're going to hang all of us. And what are we trying to do? We're the people that are trying to straighten out this country, put it back on its feet, not ship out all of our production. We're trying to do and make America great again. We've got globalists in charge. The globalists have basically run us into debt with $38 trillion in the hole, and they want to put us even deeper. We can barely pay our bills. If it weren't for Trump and what he has accomplished and what he's done, or God forbid, if Kamala and Waltz would have gone in there, we probably already would have been destroyed. It wouldn't be the situation that we're in today. I can guarantee you that. Trump is in a state of emergency. We all are. There is an insurrection going on, and it's within our country itself. We've got politicians, media, and forces at large that don't want America great again, and they are going to do everything they can possibly do to basically take us down, cause a financial collapse. After they've, cut and burned us down, then we can come back exactly the way that they want us to come back, and that's with no liberties, no freedom, Constitution out the door, and basically we'll be the lapdogs, we'll be socialist, communist, and whatever they want us to be. They were so close of getting this, they could taste it. And because they tasted it, they don't have no morals, no scruples, no nothing. I mean, I'm telling you, it gets right down to assassinations, threats. I mean, when you look at this, we have had fraud. Look at what Doge did, finding all of the debts and all of the fraud and everything going on, how the government mismanaged the money. The states, the Democratic states, are doing the same damn thing. Do you think that they want to give any of that up? No, they don't. They want to go right back to it. And if they can financially ruin us and put us, into dire straits, then they can have control over us, Jeff. And that's where it's heading. And we are in a state of emergency. And Trump should basically, I hate to say this, but, they're insurrectionists, and he should pull out all stops right now.
I agree. No, it's when the Supreme Court ruled the way they did on Friday in such a blatantly anti-American, anti-worker, and pro-globalist direction. I said, they're popping champagne corks. You've given the globalists now one of their biggest victories in years. And that's when I realized, the gloves are now off. The gloves are now off. It's all-out political warfare. And that's why I hope Trump uses every tool in the toolbox. I mean, now we have to win the midterms. We have to hold off the Democrats and keep building on this America First movement. But let's not kid ourselves. I don't trust Justice Roberts. I don't trust Amy Coney Barrett anymore. And Neil Gorsuch, I'm willing to give him one pass. But if he rules something like this again on another issue, the Supreme Court has been compromised. I mean, people may disagree with me, but I believe now we are looking at a compromised Supreme Court. Thank you so much for that call, as always, Dan. Tom in Framingham. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning. Great show again. I just wanted to say if Trump has to go to Congress, he technically can use reconciliation. In other words, he does not need a supermajority in the Senate to vote with him. The problem is a lot of whether or not you can use reconciliation and how it's used is determined by the Senate parliamentarian. And I've stated my problems with that. The fact that the Senate parliamentarian is this woman who was appointed by Harry Reid years ago. And it's the purview of the Senate majority leader to appoint the Senate parliamentarian. And, of course, neither Mitchie or this stiff Thune had thought to replace her at the beginning of the term. So this might be kind of dicey. The other thing is whether he can even get the votes in Congress. As you know, 6 Republicans defected and voted against him for the Canadian tariffs in the House. And in the Senate, I don't trust any of those people.
Well, look, Tom, Tom, look, because we're up against it. Normally I would hold you over, but we've got Mike Connealy on, so I can't. But just to sum it up, look, you're dead on. Too much foreign influence in Congress. You have too many members of Congress, Democrat and Republican, who are bought and paid for. Whether they're bought and paid for by China, whether they're bought and paid for by the Europeans, whether they're bought and paid for by the Canadians, it really doesn't matter. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, joining me now is Mike Connealy. He is a candidate, Republican candidate for governor. He wants to challenge Maura Healey in November should he win the Republican primary. Mr. Connealy, thank you so much for coming on the Kuhner Report.
Hey, Jeff, great to be with you. Call me Mike, by the way.
Okay, Mike.
All right. Thanks
Mike,
so much.
we've only got about 10 minutes, so I want to get right to it. I want to ask you straight out. There are three men vying for the Republican nomination. You, Brian Shortsleeve, and Mike Minogue. To the vast audience of Kuhner Country, most of whom will be voting in the primary, why you and not them? What makes you uniquely qualified to get their vote to challenge Maura Healey in November?
Well, Jeff, I love this question. Look, we got three candidates in the race. We all have a background and experience in business, okay? We all have nearly identical views on the issues, which are very different than Maura Healey's. The differentiation, Jeff, is in two respects. One is experience and track record, because in addition to my 19 years experience building companies and creating jobs all over the country, I have been in public service in Massachusetts for a dozen years, delivering real results to the people on pro-growth economic policies, on real lasting government reform, on real progress in education. That's a differentiator. And we cannot nominate someone who's going to need a lot of on-the-job training. And I keep telling Republican voters, look, at some point there'll be two people running for governor. One is Maura Healey. As bad as she is, she's run for in one statewide office 3 times. And we're going to have one Republican. And we got to go convince the voters, 92% of whom are not Republican, to fire Maura Healey and hire them. You can't do that unless you have a track record. And my track record, Jeff, by the way, is a track record I think any Republican will be proud of. It's 2 years turning around the worst performing school district in Massachusetts in Lawrence, where we did things like slash the bureaucracy by 40%, put parents back in charge of their kids' education, and help increase the graduation rate from 52% to 72%. That's real progress, real innovation, real results. My record as economic development secretary was helping the state create 230,000 private sector jobs. So I can go on and on about that, but that is the differentiation, first of all, is experience and track record of delivering for the people and being able to convince the voters, particularly independent voters, that this Republican's ready to do the job day one. I guess the second area, Jeff, is around loyalty and allegiance to the Republican Party in Massachusetts, to the Republican cause. And so I raised over the last few years $2 million for the party. I personally supported 22 candidates in 2024, 31 last year. I'm a top 5 donor to the auditor's ballot question, both last time and this time around. Nobody's done more for the Republican Party, its candidates, and its causes than I have. And I'm running against 2 individuals that are both major Democratic donors, one of whom said in an interview doesn't really identify with being a Republican, one who unregistered for the party on the eve of Joe Biden's inauguration, who's a major donor to people like Andrea Campbell and the Environmental League of Massachusetts. So I think in terms of loyalty to the Republican cause and demonstrated experience and track record, those are 2 areas that I really stand out versus the other guys.
Mike, the question my audience is asking me to ask you is, where do you stand on President Donald Trump? Did you vote for him in 2016? Did you vote for him in 2020? Did you vote for him in 2024?
Yeah, Jeff, I've been clear and honest about this. I stand with the president on what he's done in terms of closing the border, reducing taxes, having a strong foreign policy, having energy dominance. As folks know, I blanked my ballot those 3 cycles. I certainly was not going to vote for the Democrat. But what's important now in this race for governor is, where do I stand on the issues? And I tell people I expect to be the nominee of the party. In that case, the voters will have a choice between a Republican nominee that respects what the president's done on those issues, that wants to work with him to get things done on behalf of the people of Massachusetts, versus an incumbent Democratic governor that built a reputation suing Donald Trump. Those are very, very different considerations. So I
Mike,
like what the president...
if I can just nail you down on this. So you're saying you didn't vote for Trump 3 times in a row. You said you blanked the ballot, which means you didn't vote for the Democrat. But you're saying, so you didn't vote Trump against Hillary or against Biden or against Kamala, correct?
I've been honest about this, Jeff, since the first day of the campaign.
Okay, no, that's fine. Why? I'm just curious. Why? What was it about Trump that you just couldn't vote for him?
Jeff, I don't think leaders go back in time and try to revisit past decisions. I'm telling you right now, the election I'm focused on is 2026. And I think the more time we spend on this, the less time we spend focused on the destructive chaos and incompetence of the Healey administration. So I moved on. I'm focused on 2026. I respect what the president's done in the issues I've talked about. I will work with him. In particular, we should talk about immigration, okay? Because Governor Healy will blast what ICE is doing, but has made no attempt to work with the president and work with ICE to get dangerous criminals off our streets and out of our shelters and out of our state. It's a very different approach. And so I will work with the president. Governor Healy will not. And the only election I'm focused on right now, Jeff, is 2026. We have got to get Maura Healey out of office. I cannot believe what I'm looking at day to day, week to week here in Massachusetts with respect to immigration, taxes, spending, not standing up to the people with respect to the audit of the legislature, a destructive climate agenda which drives up our costs. I can go on and on and on, but that is where I'm focused now. 2026, getting Governor Healy out of office, and I'm the one Republican in the field that can do it.
Will you end the sanctuary policies of Maura Healey, and will you demand that Michelle Wu cooperate with ICE if they come in to arrest illegal aliens?
Yes and yes. I mean, look, Jeff, we are a sanctuary state. And, you go back in time what Maura Healey said about this. She said years ago she's proud of her sanctuary status. She said 2 years ago she's not sure what sanctuary means. She said last year we're not a sanctuary state. I mean, first and foremost, leaders have got to speak clearly. And I would say in no uncertain terms, we cannot be a sanctuary state. And we have to end the sanctuary policies that make us such. And we have to demand that our local leaders do not have sanctuary policies. Look, Jeff, the way I look at every single issue is what is best for the people of Massachusetts. That's what anybody who wants to be the chief executive of the state has to do. What is best for the people? This is a public safety issue. We have dangerous criminals in our midst, and we have ICE that wants to work with local and state law enforcement to get them out of Massachusetts. How can that not be best for the state and for the people? So that's where my focus is. And by the way, on the whole issue about the crisis and $4 billion spent on this, I warned Governor Healy about this. We had a meeting when I was the outgoing Housing and Economic Development Secretary, and she was coming in. I said, look, you're going to have a crisis here because President Biden has opened the border, and we have people coming in here, and we're the only one of the 50 states that's right to shelter, and that guarantees thousands of people will come here and create mayhem and chaos. And that's what happened. And she didn't heed the warning, and she's badly mismanages, and she's not doing the things that have to get done now to make us safe. And that just, Jeff, I get angry about it. I mean, I love the state, and I cannot believe what's happening under Governor Healy's leadership.
We are talking with Mike Connealy, Republican candidate for governor. Mike, we've got about 2 minutes left. Lowering electricity costs, lowering energy costs. You get elected. How will you reduce those massive costs?
Well, first of all, the result of the massive costs are two things. One is a lack of energy supply, okay? And the governor has famously bragged about shutting down natural gas pipelines. How do we get those pipelines built? We need more supply of natural gas and other forms of energy in our state. Secondly, get what I call the green gimmicks off our utility bills. I mean, she is running a climate agenda through our utility bills. It is madness. It's not an energy policy. It's a climate agenda. So get all those charges off of our bills. If we accomplish those two things, then we'll have much cheaper energy.
Mike, okay, before I let you go, where can people go to find out more about where you stand on the issues, or if they want to donate to your campaign?
Great question, Jeff. Go to MikeConnealy.com. It's got a lot of information about my background, my track record, both in business and meaningfully here in public service in Massachusetts, and my stance on the issues. I will end sanctuary policies. I will demand the audit of the legislature. I will cut taxes and spending. I will stop the mandates and threats and lawsuits against our cities and towns and start funding them again. I'll end the climate madness. I'll get this economy moving, and I'll demand a better education for our kids.
MikeConnealy.com, Kennealy, MikeConnealy.com. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the Kuhner Report. I appreciate it. Okay, let me ask all of you, is it a deal breaker for you? Many of you, obviously, who listen to the show in Massachusetts, most of you are primary voters. You're going to vote in the Republican primary. The fact that Mike Connealy, as he said on this interview, didn't vote for Trump 2016, 2020, or 2024. And when I asked him why, basically said he doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to focus on this election and not previous elections. Did that cost him your vote? Or do you not care? Or do you think maybe it's going to help him as a kind of a Baker Republican, somebody who didn't vote for Trump? Will that help him with some voters in Massachusetts? Because you know how much the Democrats despise Trump. So I'm just curious, is it a deal breaker for you that Connealy has never voted for Trump and is obviously not a Trump supporter? 617-266-6868. Eric in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Eric, and welcome.
Yes, he should an affidavit on these 5 things, an audit. Didn't hear anything about that. Whistleblowers, the courts, the CPS, and persecutions of higher ups. You know, Minnesota, go over other AGs, walls of what do you have to say about that? In Harvard, you know, all those affairs there, Summers and all this other ties in. Pretty connected, everything, and that's what we're dealing with the Supreme Court. You know, so, and it's really entrenched, and it's systemic, and it's syndicated.
Well, Eric, you know what? Look, one of the questions, I just didn't have time, but we're going to have them come back several rounds. This is not going to be the only time. This was just the first round. One of the things I wanted to ask him, didn't get a chance, but I will definitely the second time, is do you support Trump pulling federal funding if Healy and Wu continue to make Massachusetts a sanctuary state, if they refuse to cooperate with ICE, or to your point about the state audit? You know, he says he supports the state audit, which is great, but the fact that Beacon Hill is refusing to cooperate, they're stonewalling, and now Andrea Campbell, has literally, you can't make this up, is going to court to defend Beacon Hill against State Auditor Diana DeZoglio. So our own state attorney general is now trying to cover up the corruption on Beacon Hill. She's going against the voters who passed by over 72% the ballot initiative calling for a full state audit. So, you know, the question I want to ask is, do you support President Trump pulling all federal funding until the state audit is done? Don't tell me what you're going to do after you're supposedly elected. What should President Trump do now? And then I think you're really going to start to see who's for real and who's not. And so that's another question I wanted to ask, but I probably will get to that the next time. Because, look, there's no question what the state audit is going to reveal is how many people, how many businesses, how many political hacks benefit from the corruption in this state and the billions and billions and billions that Healy has given out to illegal aliens. That it's a massive scam and a massive fraud, you know, equivalent to what we're seeing in Minnesota.